or so of your annual car payments. What's not to like about that, right?
What's not to like is the patchwork of laws that govern utilities across the country. In some states or even counties, it's against the law for people to sell extra electricity they generate to anyone but the utilities. And there's no law that says the utilities have to buy that electricity back. To change all that, it'll take courageous lawmakers to put country first and big utilities second, or this great program could stall out, even while climate change is revving up. In Alaska, climate change has already shortened winters, which means late formation of sea ice, the strong barrier between coastal villages and the violent Bering Sea winter storms. As the exposed soil is much softer than sea ice, the village of Nutuk, with 340 residents, is losing 80 feet a year of coastline. Their barge landing, the main source of incoming goods, is gone, as is their dump. Their freshwater supply is next to go. They've got to move 9 miles inland. The cost, $130 million. 4 other villages are also designated imminently threatened, with 184 more on deck. 600 miles away and still in Alaska, there's a team fighting climate change with an untapped energy source that saves money, clears the air, and even warms your bath.
We're at Chena Hot Springs. I'm Bernie Carl, and here's Bert and Ernie. They're our goats. Alaska has more geothermal energy than all the states put together. But yet Chena Hot Springs is the first geothermal power plant in the state of Alaska.
Gwen Holden is Bernie's chief engineer for energy projects.
I'm pregnant with twins right now. That's right, 6 months pregnant.
Gwen's main job with Bernie was exploring the potential of the Chena Hot Springs themselves.
What people were saying was that the 165 degree Fahrenheit water that we had wasn't high enough for generating power.
Your typical geothermal plant is operated at 250 F or greater. So you're really looking for very hot water or even steam.
I knew that I could make electricity from this water. And I brought in a drill rig and I started drilling a well over here.
Before long, Bernie and Gwen did a successful test. At the same time, way back in Connecticut, giant manufacturer UTC Power was working on the same solution.
We needed 165, 200 degree water. When you go to Chena Hot Springs, there's 165 degree water coming out of the ground. That's where Bernie Carl comes in.
Now this power plant is making power off of water that's not as hot as McDonald's coffee.
We developed lower temperature technology, so you don't have to go after 300 or 400 degree water or steam.
This is working. We're doing it. I mean, the lights are on right now geothermally. Now we're going to enter the largest ice structure in the world to be up all summer. Now Forbes magazine voted this the dumbest business idea of the year. Mr. Forbes can kiss my ass. This entire structure is kept cold geothermally. It cost me about $12 a day to refrigerate this place. If you did it on diesel fuel standard, it would be $750 a day. It's the cheapest thing going. Our electricity was costing us 30 cents a kW. Right now, we're at 5 cents a kW. In 3 to 4 years, we'll be 1 penny per kilowatt hour. We'll have the cheapest energy in the state of Alaska. People say, where do you stand on global warming? I said, well, if someone thinks there's not global warming, then they must have their head up their ass. I said, if you pull your head out and open your eyes, you'll notice the glaciers are melting. You will notice that the sea ice cap is almost gone. So, do you think there's global warming? Yes, there is. Do I think man is causing global warming? I think that we add to it. Do I think we're causing it? No. But that doesn't make any difference. I want clean water and I want clean air. And that's so simple. Usually what I get is people say, well, why hasn't this been done before? I don't know. I have no idea. If I can do it here, maybe it'll catch on to the other 230 villages in Alaska. And maybe if it catches on there, what if it starts catching on in the towns? What if everybody caught on? What if they did it because it made sense in their pocket? What if they had more change at the end of the day for being responsible? What about that?
Climate change may be hardest on the oceans, where hundreds of millions of people get their main source of protein. Off the coast of Oregon is a dead zone the size of New Jersey. Thousands and thousands of Dungeness crabs, sea worms, and sea stars have died because oxygen levels are so low. Pockets of oxygen-depleted seawater have long been common far offshore, but with a combination of climate change-induced fluctuations in currents and winds, the most severe low oxygen conditions ever observed on the West Coast are now plaguing marine life. Climate modeling predicted what has become an annual occurrence since 2002. Scientists have no idea whether this is reversible.
Energy efficiency is getting the services you need, like a cold beer or a hot shower or a comfortable house, using as little carbon-generating fuel as possible.
Energy efficiency starts with buildings, which account for about 40% of all U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, which is more than double that of transportation. And that's because we use a lot of fuel oil and natural gas to heat buildings. We use electricity to light them and cool them. Currently, a bit of this electricity comes from renewables, but a big chunk comes from natural gas and nuclear. Nuclear power splits atoms and opinions. Proponents tout its ability to produce massive amounts of non-carbon energy. Opponents have distaste for radioactive waste, potential for rogue nuclear bombs made from that waste, and the enormous cost for new nuclear plants. There is disagreement on whether nuclear power is a must in tackling climate change. But right now, one other energy source has the lion's share of the market.
We're looking right now at a U.S. electricity business that's about 50% coal.
And the fact is, coal is the dirtiest fossil fuel. There's no debating that. It is absolutely the dirtiest fossil fuel.
Nobody has figured out on a large scale, a commercial scale, how to strip out CO2 from the emission stream. And more importantly, haven't figured out where we put it if we strip it out.
Home Depot has a wonderful program. They funded the planting of 300,000 trees already and are planning on funding more. And as a tree grows, it sequesters carbon.
Ed and I started running the numbers and we were shocked. A single medium-sized coal plant in 10 days of operation completely negates those 300,000 trees over a 100-year lifetime. So that was a real eye-opener and kind of made us sick to our stomach, to be honest with you.
So Ed and Christina formed the nonprofit group Architecture 2030. By 2030, most buildings will be new or renovated. They say if we urge lawmakers to raise the bar on efficient building standards, making all those new and used buildings super low energy users, we won't even need coal by 2030. And all it will take is to ratchet up the technology we have in hand.
If we were to shift to the most efficient lighting technologies now on the market, we can cut electricity use worldwide by 12%. That would enable us to close 705 of the world's nearly 2,400 coal-fired power plants.
If every New Yorker swapped out all of the light bulbs in his or her apartment for CFLs, we could run the subway system on the savings.
Gotta love this commute, huh? These are beautiful. So bright. Kind of feels like we're on a prairie here with the grasses behind me. A lot of Illinois species. but we're actually 12 stories above street level. We're on the roof of City Hall, and this was our first experience with a green roof. The temperature on a green roof is about 80 or 90 degrees in the summer, whereas the temperature on a black roof can be up to 160, 170 degrees. I can feel the heat emanating from this other black roof over here. So bringing that temperature down on the roof surface makes it easier to air condition inside, but it also keeps the ambient environment around the building cooler, which reduces air conditioning costs for your neighbors. We calculated that if we can reduce the temperature in the city by 1 degree, we can save $150 million a year on air conditioning costs.
As effective as green roofs are, there's something even more valuable, and cheaper too.
I'd like to see what color the roof is. It should be white in this climate. We have a lot of coal being burned in power plants to run air conditioners to take away the heat that wouldn't be in the buildings in the first place if they had light-colored roofs.
Besides cooling the earth by reducing coal use, white roofs also help cool the earth by reflecting sunlight, making up for the ever-decreasing amount of sea ice that used to reflect sunlight.
By the time you got all the roofs white, you would be cooling the earth equivalent to having grabbed 24 billion tons of CO2 out of the air, which is equivalent to capping global warming for the next 7 years. It's huge.
Architect Bob Fox and company have added up a few energy-efficient benefits of their own in the Bank of America building.
We're using about half the energy of a typical building of this size. We're using half the potable water of a building this size. We did spend a lot of money to put in the green components of this building, but all of it has a very short payback period. So it's not what does it cost to do a green building, it's what does it cost not to do it.
New York City has great new buildings, but 85% of the buildings that we will have in 2030, we already have today. And so if we're really going to make a dent, we've got to do some retrofits.
I would like to see some of the effort transferred into installing real efficiency for low-income people. Many of these apartment buildings are just dreadfully inefficient. And the whole thought of taking gas and simply blowing it out uncaulked windows is enough to make one cry. It's bad economics, it's bad carbon, and it's worse for poor people.
I see the United States having almost a full employment economy based on retrofitting, rebooting a nation.
When you renovate a building, you're not going to take that building, ship it overseas, renovate it, then ship it back. You're going to renovate it on site.
We're going to have to weatherize millions of buildings. That's thousands of contracts, millions of jobs, billions of dollars beginning to flow in a positive direction to help the United States go from being the world leader in pollution to the world leader in solutions.
The Empire State Building is old. It has a lot of complicated details and old systems. The building is up for some major technical renovations anyway, and instead of doing a normal renovation that makes it nicer but not more efficient, we can do both at once.
We're here at the Empire State Building today, and our goal is to make this building the most efficient building it can be.
We're talking about putting a shelf that would reflect the sunlight onto the ceiling, into the space, so that it would be re-reflected down, deeper into the space.
The breakthroughs in one area can drive further breakthroughs in another.
We're here to change the rules.
For example, if we dramatically improve the building envelope, then we can dramatically downsize the mechanics for cooling and heating.
That means, by the way, I pay for a smaller cooling plant. I've saved money. And my tenants who pay for the operating expenses of the building will have a lower occupancy cost.
Depending on what choices are made, we can save about 38% of the energy and make it a lot more comfortable and healthy and productive to work in, give it higher real estate value. And I think if we can do such a great retrofit in the Empire State Building, nobody else has an excuse.
Remember those